At Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. All right. Are you an owner, architect, contractor, or a manufacturer wrestling with the question, is prefab the right choice for my project? Welcome, everybody, to Dave Cooper Live, where we today are diving headfirst into the future of construction efficiency, profitability, and innovation. Joining us is Fouad Khalil from Modly, a leader in program management and product development for industrialized construction. Together, we're going to uncover how cutting-edge methods are redefining the way projects are delivered from concept to completion. If you're in the business of building and want to leverage industrialized construction to achieve better, faster, and more profitable results, this episode is custom built for you. So buckle up, baby, and get ready to take notes, because Fouad is about to deliver insights that could transform the way you think about your next project. So let's get started. But first, we can't do any of this without all of our supporting members. And today's show is sponsored by no other than Cobalt Creed, dealer distributor for the Unico system, a small duct energy efficient central HVAC for homes and businesses where space is at a premium. If you're in the modular industry and you don't know about this system, you are missing out. I'm telling you now. Please reach out to Sean Intagliata and Dave Stewart at cobaltcreed.com. All right. Now, let's get into the other supporting members. CombiLift is the largest global manufacturer of multi-directional forklifts and straddle carriers, a leader in long load handling solutions, offering a free warehouse and site optimization design service. CombiLift helps companies of all sizes and from every industry maximize the capacity, safety, and efficiency of their warehouse and storage facilities. A big thank you to Paul Short and the team at CombiLift for helping us all to build it better. Visit them at combilift.com. Ready to scale up your offsite construction business? Introducing 4A Constructs, your solution to finding skilled labor for offsite manufacturing. Say goodbye to the headache of recruiting a skilled workforce with hand-selected certified tradesmen that are expertly trained and managed for offsite manufacturing, set crews, and finish crews, ensuring maximum productivity and safety. Unlock the future of skilled workforce development for all of your offsite construction needs. Visit them at 4aconstructs.com. All right, everybody, let's get into this show. Let's bring Fouad on and welcome him. Fouad, thank you for joining us today. How are you, sir?
Good, sir. Nice to be on the show.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. I hope you had a wonderful holiday and a happy new year. So whatever it is you celebrate, and your family's nice and toasty in Atlanta, which is not the case. You said
No,
it's
we're in
getting cold.
Yeah, we're getting some winter weather now. In
Right, right. You're
Birmingham.
Alabama, though.
So
I said Atlanta, didn't
yeah,
I? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's close. It's close.
So listen, Fouad, before we hop into today, and before we learn about modeling, we want to know everything about you from the moment you were born to this very moment in time. Do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we're going to have your mother on the show, and that could get quite embarrassing. But you only have a minute and a half to do it. The floor is yours. Go for it.
Thanks, Dave. So yeah, I'm a kind of a bit of a. I'm not quite an army brat. I guess I was army adjacent. I'm originally Lebanese, but grew up bouncing around the Persian Gulf. A lot of the places that you hear about today: Saudi, Bahrain, Dubai. Spent some time in Athens, Greece. My father was part of an engineering firm, and they handled hydraulic pumps, submersible pumps. So a lot of the work that was going on at the time in that area had to do with infrastructure and engineering, and that's kind of where that's kind of how I grew up. And then in 1990, we moved to Atlanta, and then a few years later, I attended Auburn University School of Architecture, and that got me going into design. This is always kind of something I'd always been interested in, design and engineering. And architecture was a kind of a great place to start. And so graduated out of architecture school around 2000, and then ended up working a lot of different places, both overseas and in the U.S. Got into modular in probably around 2008. I was at the company that started Blocks, which is a big modular firm now. Ended up helping get that firm going, and worked there for a long time. And then in 2020, I hung out my shingle as Modly. And I've been doing that now for almost 5 years.
Well, happy to have you. So Blocks, yeah, we know Blocks very well, right? Right outside of Birmingham, I believe, right on the rail line there. What got you interested in modular construction though? Like, I mean, where did the desire come from? Like, when did you wake up and say, "Hey, how we've been doing it just doesn't make any sense"?
Well, I had a huge fascination with the British high tech in college. So I studied a lot of that stuff as it was coming up, and it always looked very modular. It wasn't always as modular as it looked, but it gave you the idea that kind of having a very refined component was a really interesting way to express the architecture. And then in 2008, as the financial crisis hit, I think collectively we began to realize that probably the old way of doing things wasn't going to continue to deliver the value that it used to. And started working on some housing solutions that involved volumetric modular boxes. And we have a very, very healthy manufactured homes industry in Alabama. And we ended up teaming with a few of those manufactured homes to deliver a prototype for really low cost housing in 2008. And that's really the kind of the little snowball that got Blocks started. We ended up going from housing to institutional non-combustible construction, which really helped kind of with the margins, helped do a lot of the research and get that. You need a lot of work just on the setup in modular, and institutional non-combustible construction really helps you with that, helps the economics work. And so we did a lot of work for healthcare, set up a lot of the initial products in that company, and then worked on developing, doing a lot of product development. So went to school on Toyota, went to school on Eliyahu Goldratt, Theory of Constraints, and Six Sigma. So all that becomes part of your toolkit now. So you're both in the construction industry, but you've also got a lot of background in manufacturing. And that's really the combination that kills in this piece.
So let's hop into this. Tell me about Modly. Where does Modly fit into the middle of this? What is, kind of the core description of what you're doing? And I know there's a lot of things, so it can be complicated.
Yeah, so we're really focused on the what we call industrialized construction, and that includes modular, prefab, offsite. It includes lean construction, and this is really a body of knowledge that comes out of manufacturing, and now, as you know, more and more is being used in construction to good effect. And we're really focused on helping manufacturers, consumers, and designers of building products launch and develop industrialized construction programs. So by programs, we're talking about some kind of commitment that extends beyond typically one project. So this is kind of an ongoing long-term commitment. And that's really where you see the returns start to work for you industrialized. Initially, your setup costs are going to be pretty high because you're not thinking about just one program, you're thinking about multiple. But over time, that's really where you get cost, quality, and speed under control and really working for you. So we're really focused on the program aspect and how we can help owners and consumers leverage these programs to improve the results in construction.
Got it. So let's talk about some of the challenges and maybe solutions that your company's delivering, and then we'll hop into, I know you have a slide deck of projects and a presentation to go through. And at the same time, I'm going to share some of the sites from some of the pages from your website talking about services. But, how does Modly address, some of the challenges in the industry to, make sure projects are efficient, make sure projects are cost effective? And how do you consistently over and over deliver high quality by following, some of the processes that you guys are putting in place?
Well, the first step, Dave, is to understand whether, the shoe fits at all. And in a lot of cases, when we start working with people, there'll be a really interest at the board level or at the leadership level in looking at modular. And the first question is, does it even make sense? And so feasibility analysis and market research is really where you want to start. You want to have a really good survey and idea of what the state of the art is, and understand, does this work for this group's business plan? Does this actually fit or not? And that can be an extensive process. You really want to vet that thoroughly. A lot of times, deals don't pencil. It does make sense maybe for somebody, but maybe not for the particular company. And that's a valuable result for a leadership team. It's not really a failure to say, hey, this is probably not for us. And more times than not, that's often the result, and that's fine with us. We want to make sure that we take as good of a whack as that and help you understand your feasibility, whether this works for you or not. If it does work for you, then the next thing you want to ask yourself is, what kind of IC products make sense for the application I'm looking for? I'm trying to address a certain market need, and if the IC product isn't flexible enough, or we can't make it in large enough quantities, or the costs are too high, then we have something to work on. But product selection is probably the second step in that. Is what are the specific products that work? And often, Dave, as you know, it's a combination of IC products. It's usually not one killer product, but we might say use an MEP rack with a volumetric product, or we might use a chunk of some kind that connects to a distribution system. And really, it's in the combination of these products where the thing starts to sing. And then finally, we can do the product development itself. So often you may have a design effort, but you also need to get that product tested, engineered. You need a prototype built, a mock-up built that works before you can even deploy it on the site, because Lord knows the risk, of something going wrong there is high. So we can often help you, get you through prototyping, get you through the initial product development, and then launch the product with you on the actual job site. And then often, once you have your standardized product, we do a lot of work on site adapts. So you've got your widget that works for you, whether it could be a ceiling system, it could be a prefab bathroom or a prefab wall element. And then you've got to integrate that into an actual job site, an actual project team that's building the rest of the structure. And so that's often very intensive. It can be very fast paced. We have a lot of experience doing site adapt and then supporting the install team during the actual delivery of the product itself. So it's a full life cycle, end-to-end type of commitment.
So does Modly manufacture anything? Do you have a manufacturing facility, or do you basically come in and work on all the different principles we talked about with manufacturers, either to set up new client or new manufacturing facilities for a client, or help them optimize, their processes and help them really think through, what widgets are they using? Are there more efficient ways to use those widgets? Walk us through exactly. I'm a customer. Here I am. I have a manufacturing facility. I'm not getting the output on production that I need. I don't know what to do, Fouad. Can you help me?
Right. So yeah, that's a very good point, because there's a lot of folks in the space, for example, folks like Blocks that are vertically integrated. So you might go to a group like that and say, okay, we want a turnkey solution. We give you the money, you give us the building. And that works, but that's not all of it. And there's a lot more in modular that's really more about distributed manufacturing than necessarily vertically integrated. So we tend to work in the distributed manufacturing space. We work with a lot of manufacturing facilities around the country. Those are really coming along. And we've seen a lot of improvement and a lot of versatility in those manufacturers. And so we might team with a product owner, and then go talk to somebody like Bear Manufacturing up in Wisconsin, to help get a product line set up, help engineer the first article, and then get a production system. And we often team with folks like, I know you've had ICG on the show.
Yeah.
So they're great. So there are also some former Blocks alum there that we've known each other for a long time. So where I might do the program management and the product design, they might be out on the line helping you optimize your process, set up your standard work, look at ways to make your production efficiency increase. And we really need that to work hand in hand with design. So design sets up they have a theory of the case. They start working with the manufacturing, and then the manufacturing has feedback, and that feedback's really got to get integrated back into the design for it to really work. And the more you can iterate like that, the more efficiency and the better your solution's going to be. So really, we really emphasize onboard design during production launch and throughout production, so that they can pick up the learnings that install and fabrication are generating to make that product work even better. Half the design is about the making of it, not just the way it looks like when it's finished.
Right. So it really sounds to me like you guys handle everything from end to end, from setting up the processes. I want to get into the technology here in a second, but you manage even prototyping new products or prototyping different widgets or kit of parts, so to speak, on what would work better, all the way through the field implementation and support of that. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's very much been the direction that we've been going in now for some time. Yeah. Is every project a bespoke project, so to speak, or when it comes to technology, or like everybody uses a different software to design? Nobody uses the same process. Nobody has the same DFMA process, right? How are you controlling the data when you're working with so many different clients around the world? Yeah, I think that's a very important question, because I think managing IC kind of by definition has to function at a faster pace than even conventional construction, which often goes very fast just by itself. But if you've got to catch up your product and meet that construction team in the field, you've got to be going at a pretty rapid clip. You don't want to be doing that, losing any accuracy in terms of or fidelity of information. You've got to make sure that all that information tracks all the way through the end. So we use a lot of kind of tools that have come online recently. I'm a big fan of Airtable, for example, as a platform, because it has the the planner tool or Trello. It has a Trello type Kanban system for task management. And what that helps you do, that gives full transparency to the team of, hey, this is what we're working on. These are where our priority tasks are. And it's very transparent. Anybody on the team can look at that Trello board, know exactly what you're doing, right? So if say you're on the MEP side and you need to understand what the steel team is doing, what the structural frame is doing, you can see that and they can see what you're working on. And that saves a lot of time in terms of, when you're doing prototyping and design. It really helps reduce the confusion. Hey, who's on first? And it helps us track progress and promote accountability. You can also integrate your schedules with that, and all of your documents can also be on the same thing. So we look for systems, platforms that are very responsive, that are very, very tightly focused and can deliver the piece of information that you need at that moment. And a lot of these new systems like Airtable, Trello, there's a bunch of them, but you've really got to incorporate that, Dave, with your management cadence as you're going. So what are your stand-up meetings looking like? Are we checking in every week? Are you checking in every day sometimes multiple times a day to make sure things are getting picked up? Because you just can't afford to leak any effort. We often confront productivity leaks. It's like, hey, teams should be performing at this level, but we're not getting the result fast enough. What's going on? Why can't we see the problem? This is a way for us to see that problem and get to it before it starts to create a bigger problem.
Now, does this software, will it integrate with the design to manufacturing software, or are they two separate pieces?
Well, we will typically, we're very BIM heavy. So the other leg of the stool is going to be your AEC 360, your Autodesk, your BIM 360, your cloud-based tools, because without that, you really can't do any of this stuff. It's really the linchpin. And then often we get into machine to code. And so converting, say, a wall panel into a G code that a automated roll former might do, it really helps to structure the data and use as many plugins as you can. So often we'll go from the design to a CNC machine. You've just got to be able to build in that knowledge that you may be needing to do that early enough. And that's often why setup is as involved and as expensive as it is, because you're really building in that functionality that you're going to leverage downstream, right?
Absolutely.
And so you need to be totally digital about everything you can be from the very beginning.
Awesome. I'm going to add your slide deck here to the screen. Let's walk through some projects, and what you have here, because there's a lot of really interesting things in here, everything from residential to hospitals. So show us the way.
Sure. So this opening slide was for a project we did with actually a horizontally integrated developer, builder, and operator of senior living facilities. And here we just had a little mock-up. This is actually a digital image. We didn't actually build these models. It was just a way for us to present. But this was looking at applications in senior housing for volumetric modular. And so, it was probably a little early in the market at that time, but I think this is the kind of thing you're going to see a lot more and more. You look at things like senior housing, you look at things like affordable housing, IC is going to play a part, whether it's bathroom pods and panels, whether it's full volumetric. And a lot of it starts with looking at existing designs and trying to upgrade them or reauthor them for modular, right? Because that's really where you have to start. You have to start with what works best. Just a little bit, this is my background. This is actually going back to Block's days with Walmart Health. This was a part of the team with Walmart Health in these images. So we did Walmart Health at Blocks, and that was 50 clinics over 5 years in 5 states, very rapid deployments. Blocks team, I ended up leaving Blocks as the program was launched and set up, and they did a very good job with that customer. That was a very big project for us, a very important project. Here you see some of the other images. Some of this is from blog, some of this is from later, but just gives you an idea of the range of products that are possible in IC. So everything from building chunks to rack-based to volumetric modules. And there's a lot of versatility in IC that I think people need to be aware of. It isn't just one solution. It's, again, often combining multiple solutions, even nesting solutions within solutions. And how you do that and to what extent you do that is really up to your business model and what works for you and your market. So that's, again, where product selection is really, really important. This is actually some architectural work that was pretty modular. Actually, that slide's out of place. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's go to this one. So this was the social housing prototype back in 2010 using volumetric modules, and this was a HUD program. The HUD program ended up being discontinued, but this was very, very low cost housing for the time for seniors who did not need to be in a nursing home, but might have needed some assistance and certainly needed assistance in terms of the affordability. So these were 500 square foot or less housing units for seniors in Northport, Alabama. And this was our first foray, 2010, first foray into full modular. I'll go through this one very quickly. This was for a heart clinic where we developed modules for the examination rooms. This had a bank of examination rooms, and we really wanted the design of this building. This was back at GA Studio, the company that started Blocks. We wanted the design and the flow through this thing to be very lean and very intuitive, so you can see a lot of natural space. And then really thinking about this in terms of lean flow, you're pulling your patients out of the centralized, very nice waiting room so that there's no waiting for you once you enter into the clinical environment. We're all familiar about going into a doctor's office where you're having to wait 30, 40 minutes in the exam room. This actually whole thing was designed so you didn't have to do that. And it's very much the kind of thinking that sets up a process flow in a manufacturing plant. So we used lean design to do this, and these were the modular examination rooms in those examination bays. We ended up creating work cells for the doctors and nurse. Each doctor and nurse work cell was 3 exam rooms, and they would work that work cell all day, and you never had to wait. They were always ready for you when you got back here, and you could navigate. You can see the signage. You can navigate through that intuitively. You didn't need a nurse to take you through the medical office building. So that was a very useful. We learned a lot from that project about both how to deliver product, but also how to design using some of these lean principles, design buildings using the lean principles to start with.
So is this let me ask you a quick question. So it was the whole building modular, or just the what we're looking at on the inside here?
Just these exam rooms were modular. So
and was it a retrofit to an existing building?
No, all ground up construction.
Okay. Thank you.
So we, a lot of it is combining modular with conventional. How to do that, when to do that, and what to do that for. There's going to be, components in your project that are going to be really high yield in terms of using modular, and you need to think about that carefully. Actually, this next project, which was an architectural project, also kind of shows you a modular application, maybe just in facades. So this was a net zero building in Sweden I worked on while I was at White Architecture, which is a big firm. Thank you. Yeah, and you can see that the facade is entirely modular. It's made up of these individual modular cells. The whole thing was actually, the facade is in cross-laminated timber. And based on what's going on behind the facade, whether you needed a lot of light or a lot of thermal performance, you basically could tune all of these modules for the use that was appropriate. So in areas where we needed a lot of view, we would open up the mods and let more light in. And in areas like where we didn't need a lot of light, for example, in computer rooms or laboratories, we tighten up that aperture. And modular was a way to deliver. We also used a lot of CLT panels and elements in this building, and that is also a modular product. Cross-laminated timber is now coming on very strong as a building material here in the United States, and it is inherently a modular product because the panels come out in specific sizes. You can tool them and create features within those as you install that make the install easier, and that's a big part of this kit of parts. This was kit of parts construction that was very, very finely tuned for thermal and energy performance for this building. And you wouldn't have been able to do that had you not taken on this kind of modular approach. Here you can see there's a mega panel, and within each mega panel, there's an array of 6 micro panels, and those all come together to create an assembly.
Why wouldn't you be able to do that unless you went modular?
Well, I mean, for one thing, we embedded all kinds of juicy technology in that. So there's an electrical blind system that actually works inside that you can't see. When the sun comes on, the electrical blinds come down. If you were on a lift or a scaffold and you were trying to install that in the middle of the winter in Sweden, I mean, you would have been up there for a long time. It would have been pretty hazardous. We ended up packaging all of this in a plant. And when they install it, they are installing the big chunks all at once, and it really reduces your construction time and risk. So this was just something that we realized if we had tried to do this in stick pieces on site, that would have been very difficult to realize this project at all. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Just the safety and efficiency on site is a big reason to actually start with modular in the first place. You can see here some of the modeling that we did. A lot of the high-end scripting and physical simulation and modeling. The amount of control that modular systems help you create in your building is really at a different level than what you can typically do in stick. Just because it's so complex, there involves multiple trades, electrical, digital, and physical, all these things coming together. And if you're not doing that in a controlled environment in a plant, it's going to be very difficult to get right. And here you can see some of the mock-up work. This was actually a fabricator in Lithuania that did this for us. And so we had everything was built in Lithuania and then shipped to Sweden to assemble on site. And that's another thing, in terms of the supply chain leverage that you get. It's another order of magnitude when you think about things in a modular way.
Yeah, I wanted to just make a quick comment on what you said about, the efficiency that you get from doing it, your approach. That's kind of what you were getting to. So for those that are out there that aren't familiar with modular and offsite or what have you, I mean, all this is put together already in a controlled environment. Nobody's up, 15 stories on scaffolding in cold weather, taking a shortcut because they'd rather get home and drink some hot cocoa or something, right? So I think that's kind of where the difference is. It's an assembly system on site versus a construction system on site.
Right. And that's another thing, I think, when you think about mock-ups and the importance of the mock-up and the working prototype, is you've got this plant that's already running and building product day and night, right? So for them to run a mock-up through or a physical prototype for your team to go in and evaluate and make changes on, that is not a big deal for that team. If they need to pull in supplier materials, if they need to develop a new type of panel or a new type of rigging system, they can do that as a matter of course. Whereas if you're asking a team that's just mobilizing on site for the first time, they're all getting to know each other, and then you've got site conditions that are less than ideal. How far can you really get with a mock-up? How many iterations can you really do before that team's like, hey, we need to get going on this, right? Whereas here, I mean, we literally adjusted the size of the perforation on these panels 3 times before they got installed just to get it working better. We were able to look at finish options. We were able to look at panel sizes. We were able to evaluate things photographically. And this is a luxury that most construction teams really don't have if they're not using these types of techniques. So just in terms of the level of control and reliability of the systems used, offsite prefab and modular, again, we're talking at really a step level different than what you typically see in a construction project that's built stick.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't have to build all of it that way. You just do the stuff that's most important to you that way. That's the key part. A little bit here. This is the Blocks plant. This is not my plant. I encourage you to get in touch with them. Great team over there. This is actually they've even upgraded. They've got plant upgrades that they've done since yet. But the main thing here was to understand the importance and value of programs, long-running commitments between the supplier and the owner. Okay, this is really key, and this is where if you're not able to sustain that type of commitment, modular offsite prefab industrialized may not be for you. This really works when you've got a pipeline of demand and you're genuinely wondering, how are you going to do this? How are you going to deliver so much product? How are you going to control costs? Maybe your costs are running away from you. Maybe your project outcomes that you need to reach a certain market, they're just not coming in line with what you want. This is a way to get there using programs, and that's really key. It's really not going to work if it's a one-off or a last-minute substitution. I'm not saying that doesn't work sometimes, but often it's probably not going to pencil. What you really need is to be thinking about this more and long-term. Obviously, owners need off-ramps. Everybody wants to make sure that the performance is there, but with a program approach, you're really looking at the trend line. You may not start where you want to be, but the amount of controls that you have over the long term is almost a guarantee you will end up where you need it to go. And for that, we use a number of these. Again, we talked about the systems or thinking. You have the Toyota production system, tons of literature there. A Theory of Constraints, which was pioneered by Eliyahu Goldratt. If you've ever read The Goal, very important book. And then Lean Six Sigma is really a set of tools. It's the toolbox that you get to play with in the factory environment. And it's a very powerful set of analytic tools and practical tools that are used every day. And so this really becomes your resource base in this new world of industrialized construction. This is some of the work we did, or I did over there with Blocks, thinking about the patient experience of the future. How do you design a patient experience using from the patient standpoint out, but using the modular, the industrialized construction toolkit and supply chain? How do you do things that prevent fall? How do you do things that help you with infection control? How do you do things that improve patient comfort? That's really what we need to be focused on. It's not the modular, it's the results that modular gets you that you can't get to any other way. How could you turn a room from a med-surg room into a intensive care unit just by changing some of the components out and not having to rebuild an entire intensive care wing? Say you have a pandemic, for example, and you needed that surge capacity. Modular actually gives you an opportunity to reach those kinds of goals, right? So it can give you the flexibility you need to meet your market in ways that other design or construction solutions don't. Walmart Health, that was another big program that I worked on at Blocks. You can see here some of the modular volumetric they're coming down the line. Very powerful, I think, image there, just to give you an idea. That image is actually what's going into that space.
Yeah, and I love Blocks because they're right on the rail line too. They can put these right on a rail car and ship them out. It's a huge, it's a 1 million square foot factory, I believe.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then working on these programs, we did a lot of work with folks like DuPont. You can see we were developing a pager system prototype that helps the patient know when their appointment time was ready. But you also get into such a deeper engagement. We worked with the branding group at Walmart. We worked with the operations team, and so you've got this ongoing program, and your level of engagement with the customer is so much deeper because you're working on a long-term basis, and it can be very rewarding for
Yeah.
both sides.
Let me ask you, so your work really involves collaborating with a diverse range of clients, everything from single family housing, multi-story housing to very, very complex, medical facilities and commercial facilities. Can you share a few of your success stories or case studies that highlight, how Modly helped the client achieve, exceptional results using your processes, using industrialized construction? I mean, you're looking at prefab operating rooms. We had a conversation earlier where you were talking about working with Northwest Arkansas. We have about 10 minutes left on the show, so I want to make sure we cover some of those things.
That's
I think they'll be
great.
very valuable.
Yeah. So maybe just a little on the Northwest Arkansas Industrialized Construction Program. So this is something that we set up with a group of companies in Northwest Arkansas. They're run by the Walton family, and they're really focused on sustainable housing and affordable housing in that region. That's a very rapidly growing region. Here we're working on prefabricated bathrooms. This is with a plant in Houston. It's pulling in. It's actually an Italian company that has a U.S. subsidiary. So you're looking at European fixtures there. A lot of beautiful laminates that are coming out of that area, as well as local labor in Houston. And then we're using cross-laminated timber panels there. So there's a shot of the plant there in production. And so this is something that, everything from material selection, the cost of the unit, how it installs, how do we get our teams that are installing it in Northwest Arkansas familiar with the product so that they can price it accurately, and then how do we use cross-laminated timber in the most cost-effective way to create this kit of parts. And so this was a very exciting example of us basically working with an owner from the very beginning. And getting into everything from vendor selection. We found partners, fabrication partners to work with. We started developing the appropriate kit of parts, and then working through mock-ups and reviews. So this project's actually going into construction now. We'll be installing pods in April. It's been a long time coming, but it's really an example of starting from zero and really looking at what the owner's needs are and designing the industrialized construction kit around that owner's needs. And that's really a very important activity. That's what makes this so powerful, is literally down to the grout color. Okay, that's the level of control you have. You're looking at your pricing in real time. You're looking at how the pieces fit together in real time, and you're working with the actual teams on getting your pricing and install procedures right. So, that's I think there's probably no better example of, how you can do this stuff. And this is not a volumetric solution because they wanted more flexibility in terms of their build out. So we found that panels and pods are going to be more effective than necessarily mods. But in other cases, mods may be the answer. It isn't just that panels and pods are always the right answer. It really depends on what the client's needs are. And so
Right.
I wouldn't tell anybody that this is the only way to go. You would start with your success criteria, really.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So talk to me just a little bit about how people get started in understanding this. I mean, these are big projects that you've been working on. You got a ton of experience. You got global experience. Is there a checklist or for owners, developers, what should people consider before integrating into industrialized construction into their process, or to maximize industrialized construction if they're already in it? I think that when I think of projects that are out there, especially some of the ones you're showing us that are kind of mission critical projects, how do you go into that? What's market analysis is done? What's the roadmap? I mean, it could seem overwhelming for me, it'd be overwhelming.
Yeah, I think we've got some white papers that we can link to. They're on our website. I would say you want to be looking at those five criteria: is volume, repeatability, pipeline, design and optimization. So is the juice worth the squeeze? Do you have enough volume of problem for this to actually make sense in terms of your investment? Do you have a pipeline that extends beyond just one project so you have some time to work with it, right? Do you have enough repeatability in terms of your kit or what you're thinking about that it makes sense? Because you do need repeatability, you do need standardization. You don't need an infinite amount of standardization, but you need some. And then the other two are, design and optimization have to do with, do you have a manufacturing partner that's willing to work with you on optimizing your kit to make it work? Do you have a design partner that understands it enough that is willing to iterate until it's right? Because that iterative process is really key in terms of getting everything to really work over time.
Right.
So if you're looking at your problem and somehow these 5 things are balanced, right? Then you've got something that makes a lot of sense for you to look at. I would start there, and we can often help you kind of filter through that. That's a lot of what we do with owners that are maybe less experienced in the space. We help take the problem and kind of sift it through these tools.
Got it. I'm going to hop to a question here from Henry Mickelberg. I don't know if you know Henry. Oh, geez, Henry, what are you writing on there for me to have to pronounce, my friend? I believe it's Kanban-esque, if I said that right. Airtable, agile methodologies tend to work well in the manufacturing remit, but I find it is too prescriptive, restrictive for the non-IC construction activities. The GC stuff, really, it would be interesting to hear Fouad's thoughts.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I think that the controlled environment, if you think about a factory, you've got your morning meeting, you may have a couple of stand-ups, and then everything kind of goes along in the day in that same rhythm. And that helps you set up your Kanban, actually, because you have a cadence. A lot of plant managers talk about their cadence, and you can fit your standardized processes within a cadence, and it makes sense. When you're on a site, I mean, you do tend to be firefighting a lot. The scope of activities changes radically when you're trying to get out of the ground versus when you're dried in versus so on. And I think it is a challenge. Now, introducing IC to the construction environment is a way to help maybe introduce a certain cadence. So I could see it working a little bit better, especially if you're thinking about, hey, we're going to do 25 clinics, for example, right, over the next 3 or 4 years. So let's set up some standardized chunks of time on this job site. But if you're just trying to do that on a one-off, I could see teams struggling with that a little bit. Pull planning helps, though. If you guys are familiar with, if any of the guys are familiar with pull planning gives you the 6-week look ahead, kind of, and that 6 weeks look ahead then gives you a structure that you can begin to standardize with. But if you're not doing that type of activity, I agree, it's going to be very difficult. I use the 6-week look ahead constantly. I think it's one of the most important things that we can do in construction, because it's just about the right amount of time where you can set up some structure.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Henry, thank you so much. Happy New Year to you. Greg Ugaldi says, great discussion. How many are on board at Modley, and what are your growth projections?
Well, we're very networked right now, and so I think the internal team at Modley grows between 1 and 5 at various times. But we do team a lot. IC Thomason is a very important engineering partner. Shout out to IC Thomason, and we have a lot of long-term work that we've done with them, and we also work a lot with ICG. I think the construction environment over the last 2 years has been a challenge, especially with the rates. Hopefully that we get some relief this year and we can look at some growth. So we're cautiously optimistic, but it's been a bear. These last 24 months have been really very challenging, just in terms of projects getting put off, projects getting canceled, or just things not working out because of the rates.
Yeah, welcome to the election. We're, a couple months in the election. I think it's happening across the board. In fact, I think it happened globally, as a matter of fact, right?
Yeah,
Everybody's wondering
absolutely.
what's going on. So
Yeah.
hopefully that'll all be behind us here in a couple weeks, and we'll be moving forward faster and stronger. Fouad, I know you had a couple different slides left there. We have a few minutes. Is there anything that you definitely want to make sure we touch on before we wrap up? If it's in those slides, I'll put them back up. Or if you just have one thing that you want everybody to know about what you guys do, what would that be?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing is, I was on a panel at the end of last year and we talked about high embedded value. And I think one of the things that industrialized construction provides construction teams is a higher level of value within the component, and actually the opportunity to embed as much value into that critical component as you possibly can. And so I think that's something most teams will want to look at, especially if you're if you're an owner and you're thinking about deploying your assets or potentially also retrofitting a sizable portfolio in your real estate. You want to try to get as much embedded value back in. If you're a property developer, you want your bathrooms and kitchens where your cost centers are to be right. If you're a hospital, you're thinking about your patient rooms, your distribution systems, all of your MEP plant that is, where all your costs are. If you're in the data center space, you're thinking about your distribution systems. You may be looking at microgrid capability and how do you modularize that. So I think if you look at these really critical sectors, the areas that we want as a country, we need data and energy, we need healthcare, and we need housing. Modular has a big role to play in providing us with the things we need.
It really does. I mean, the way we're doing it isn't working. I say it all the time on the show, right? If it was, we wouldn't have homeless people all over the streets around the world. We need better solutions. And I'm just flipping through. You had so many amazing slides to kind of showcase a little bit about what you do. So Fouad, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. I mean, it's been great having you on. We got your link if anybody wants to reach out with you and get in touch with you right there. So Jennifer put that up. Thank you very much. I can't wait to see some more of your projects. I definitely want to see more of the medical stuff too. I know how complex they are just from my good buddy Jim Gabriel and Mod Logic. They do some very complex things. And again, I just want to tell everybody, we can't do this without all of our sponsors and everybody. So if you just take a look down below here, make sure you reach out to all the people that support us. We are non-biased. And we are live, so there is no retakes on what we do, but we do that to keep it real, keep the industry moving forward, and showcase people like Fouad so everybody knows who's out there, what we're doing, and how we build it better. So, Fouad, thank you so much.
Dave, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you as well. And for the rest of you out there, Happy New Year's. We're back at it this year, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So make sure you tune in with us Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to have a show for you. And also, Fouad, don't go anywhere after this. I'm going to talk to you after this outro. So make sure you thank all of these supporting members as well. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.